I'm here with Buck Moore, instructor at Trebas Institute here in Toronto. Buck, have you ever hired anyone to work for you?
Yes. For various positions, I've hired people at live events, for video work, for audio work, various different things. Never full-time, but occasional. When I need somebody, I look for somebody who wants to do a gig. Like freelancers who have the time to jump from freelance gig to freelance gig, as opposed to employees. So I work with freelancers.
What do you look for in choosing someone to work for you?
Number one, I look for a good attitude. Like if somebody's really good at what they do and their attitude isn't very good, I don't feel comfortable enough to work with them, and so I don't call them again. If I realize they're there and they know lots of stuff and they're not willing to listen, then I go, okay, I need somebody with a really, really good attitude. A willingness to learn proven methods. If there are proven methods, usually there are proven methods. So if I go set up a gig, I've done it so many times, like literally thousands of times. I've hooked up wires and cameras and mics, right? And there's a certain way to do things. As you go, the experience will eventually lead to a way to do things that you agree works the best. So I need someone who's willing to actually learn my methods. And when they do learn my methods and they get really good at it, they can alter a thing or two as long as it doesn't obstruct the workflow and the client is happy. Because somebody's paying me and I'm paying them. Therefore, the person who's paying me has to be happy. Number three, believe it or not, number three is technical ability. I just need somebody to know enough about what to do, to possibly troubleshoot problems, because when you're working with wires and AV technology and film equipment, there's always going to be some technical issues to work through. So they have to be able to work through the troubleshooting process themselves. If they get stuck, they can call me on my cell phone if I'm not on site, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But just not a whole hour's worth of, they got to know something. But number one, attitude for sure. Number two, willingness to learn new methods. And number three, technical ability. As long as they know enough to get started, I'm fine with that.
How do you keep morale up?
How do I keep morale up? Well, I treat everybody like they're equal. There's no one person that's the lowest rung on the ladder. When I was doing my short films, I'd have like up to 14 to 17 people on set. One time I had 20, but 3 left because they weren't doing anything. And they were PAs. So I didn't ask for that many PAs. I think 1 or 2 or maybe 3 PAs would be good enough. But production assistant is also jokingly known as the lowly PA, where people think, oh, they're kicked around all the time. It doesn't have to be like that. Some sets are like that, where directors or production coordinators, or not any specific role, but somebody with a position of authority is going to treat a PA like garbage because they're in their way. It's like a PA is a very important function, very important. If you don't have PAs, you don't have a lot of stuff. Your smoothness on a set goes downhill. So you need PAs, you need directors, you need everybody. Everybody has to be treated equal. And I personally like to see more of that. I do it all the time because the teams that I work with, whether it's 2 people or 10 people or 14 or 17, or maybe 20 people, everybody's kind of got to go for the same goal and actually be happy being there. Like nobody with this snotty attitude because they're not being treated well. Like that doesn't belong. You got to treat people equal.
How do you keep someone working with you?
Well, like the steps I said of keeping morale up, treating everyone equal. Never ever will I ever yell at anyone who's working for me. If they screw up, there's no reason to yell at them or belittle them or embarrass them in front of others. Like that's wrong. To me, it's just like, no. If you have a problem with someone, you take them aside and be very discreet and discuss the problem. But you never make someone feel really bad right in front of anybody else. And that with, combined with treating people equal and then realizing every job is actually very important, and competitive pay or above average pay. And I'm not talking $10 more an hour than they're used to getting. But if someone's going to get 14, 15 an hour, I'd start them off at 18 an hour. And some days 19 or 20, depending on location and how much traveling time they went to. But a couple of bucks more an hour. If I say $3 more an hour, $4 more an hour, because bear in mind, nowadays minimum wage is like $10 an hour. So things have changed a little bit. So 18, $20 is actually pretty competitive for entry level in the industry, like the parts of the industry that I'm in. And that's using all the technology, the audio, the video, and stuff like that. But I find that extra few bucks an hour is like an insurance policy, meaning they feel better that they're actually getting paid a few more bucks, and they're going to go above and beyond. So they need to go above and beyond too, right?
How does a person stay hired once they get a gig?
How do they stay hired?
Yes.
Well, number one, they got to be likable. People have to like them. If people don't like you and you're really good at what you do, it doesn't mean you're guaranteed a job forever. I mean, I've met people, and I've done a lot of interviews basically with different types of workplaces. And I talked to a lot of people, and they were saying, so-and-so had 4 years of experience in this place, and I had 1.5 years as a freelancer getting paid a little, like freelancer wages, which are a little higher. And I was worried I was going to be let go, but they were let go because nobody liked to work with them. And that happens actually more than you know. People don't, so you got to be likable, number one. Dependable. Got to be dependable, right? So, 9.5 out of 10 times you got to show up on time. For the most part, you got to be very dependable so people don't have to worry. They know you're coming, so they're not worried about that. And number 3 is go above and beyond. Always do a little bit extra. And then, eventually you might get this untouchable status where your reputation is guarded no matter what you do. You don't have, this is the beauty, you don't have to be around to defend yourself. When your reputation is solid, your reputation speaks for yourself. And I can't believe how often this has actually worked for me. And I'm not trying to do these things. I just do this. But I've heard, like over the years, over the past, since 1998 when I was full-time in the entertainment industry, there was a few times where people tried to get my job away from me, from people that liked me at a position, and they said, no, we're fine, And it's like, why? And one guy got insulted and said, I hired him. Why are you trying to get his job? You're kind of insulting me now. So if you can eventually get this, I wouldn't say it's 100% foolproof, right? But a general untouchable status where people actually trust you and they go, look, it's not broken, so we're not going to try to fix the situation. Okay. That's pretty much that in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you. How does a graduate from an entertainment program get into the industry and keep working?
If you don't have any credentials, professional credentials, number one, make a credential. Like, people are using IMDb in entertainment a lot. So you make a short film. If nothing's happening, make something happen. And that becomes a credit, because it's not like you have to tell everyone what your budget was, because some people don't even report that. But one of the things is that when people look at the IMDb page or a resume or whatever, they're going to see a credit. Okay, you shot a short film that's 5 minutes long. Well, if we can actually, we don't have to see everything, but if we see that you actually did something, it's like you actually have that experience. Even though you might have paid $1,000, $2,000 to make this piece, and you weren't making money, that doesn't matter. You have a professional credit. So start a project with yourself, with others. It's incredible how many resources you would have working with other people in a similar situation. And when you combine brain cells together, it adds up exponentially where everyone's got an idea and everyone can have their own project created with the same group, right? Think of Francis Ford Coppola and American Zoetrope and all his buddies, Walter Murch and all that, hanging around together, working outside of the studio system, trying to make high quality movies, but not studio per se movies. And wow, they're written in history. I mean, but they started a concept saying, we want to do these things. It's artistic. At the same time, it's commercial. Start a network. I'd say start a network with people. So if you do have friends that are like in the same program as you, or even people that are in maybe another program at the same place or another place, form a network with people so that if someone gets into like a studio or something like that and they're doing production, and you're in their little network. When a job opportunity comes up and they go, do you know anybody? Because the first thing, go back to being likable. If somebody really likes you, they're going to trust your opinion. So they might say, Adam, I hired you, I trust you. Do you know anyone else who can do what you do? And you go, absolutely. I got a couple people I'm hanging out with. Oh, let's get them in here. At least have an interview with them. And they get to that first step with an interview. So a lot of that stuff happens because, or it happens that way because a lot of people producing media are very busy. So they can't just always put a newspaper ad out or what do you call that site? Craigslist or
Kijiji.
Yeah, Kijiji, Mandy. They can't always do that all the time. So sometimes they just say, hey, do you know anyone? Save me some work. Do you know anyone? And then you know people, and you bring them in. If they like them, they'll hire them. And this has actually happened quite a bit, where you actually see 2, 3, or 4 people that came from the same background, the same group of people working in the same place. Mm-hmm. And then your morale is even better because you know each other. Yeah. Or worse if you start fighting. And one more point is, what was the question? How do you get into the work? How do you get into the? Oh yeah, okay.
Start working.
Very important. A lot of people lose faith. Right. Everyone does it. I do it occasionally. Believe it or not. I do. I lose faith once in a while, and then I go back to my own rule because I have to. I made a whole set of rules for myself, but they're actually equally important for anyone else, is remind yourself daily of your objectives. Because if you lose faith, you might go, oh, I've given it a shot, now I'm going to do something I don't really like. And then you're like, 85 years old, and you might be frail and on your deathbed going, you know what, I wish I woulda, and that's where that whole bucket list comes out. Sure. Well, I wish I would have done this or that. It's like, well, think ahead about your bucket list and do that stuff now. So what do you want to do for a living? Do it now, pursue it. Because there's a lot of people that are going to be sitting around, and I call it the Christmas test, or holiday test, where people sit around on holidays, and every year, a lot of people don't see their families for a year at a time, and they go back and they hang out with the family. And so what have you been up to? And I always like to have an important story to tell, or an interesting story, or stuff like, because I used to do a whole bunch of jobs. I really hated it throughout my 20s and into my early 30s, right to about the age of 32 when I started full-time. I was 29, yeah. So I spent my whole 20s and late teens doing like a whole bunch of jobs. I got stuff out of the jobs, but I didn't like the jobs at all. I hated them. And every time we had a family function, to be like, so what are you doing? Because everyone else had like some sort of degree or letters at the end of their name or something like that. And I didn't. I just had Buck Moore. That's all I had. And I thought, and I felt so bad because like, how are you doing? I'm still working at this place. I hate it. Oh, well, that's too bad. Well, maybe you should become a lawyer. Maybe you should pursue, become an accountant. It's like, but I don't want to sell insurance or be a lawyer. There's other people who want to do that. I don't want to do it. I want to pursue stuff. I don't want to feel fulfilled about what I do, so that I go home at the end of the day. I hate to use that term, but at the end of the day, I go, I really made a difference today. And it's very truthful that I feel like I should be making a difference. And that's that, I guess.
Do you feel it makes a difference in your attitude as well as the people's attitudes that you work with, where they would get up in the morning and rather than saying, I hate my job, I don't like where I'm going to, getting up in the morning and saying, hey, I get to go do this. I get to go and do a gig, or I get to teach. Yeah. Do you find that that's fulfilling, especially teaching, the teaching aspect? Do you find
the teaching aspect? Yeah. Absolutely. I have a saying, I came up with this saying years ago, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I started doing sound stuff. Actually in college I did filmmaking stuff, but I ended up getting into audio more, and then I got back into video production. But at first I was like, oh, I know how to do this. Oh, I feel pretty good about that. And I used to do research in my books and then work with stuff and go, oh, I just learned something. And the more I learned how to do all these little things, the more I went, there's a whole bunch of stuff I actually don't know how to do, but I felt pretty confident about my knowledge at one point. But that's one thing. To boil it down, I enjoy keeping up with things and learning as new technology progresses. And I actually wrote down on my laminated card I had back in, I think it was the mid-90s, I wrote on a card what I wanted to do. And one of the things on there was teach classes, write articles. And I was like, okay, write articles? And so I started writing articles for major publications. Mm-hmm. And the friends who saw that were like, how did you get in that magazine? And I go, I just kind of wrote a proposal and sent it to them, and they said yes. I didn't know I could do it because, again, as Buck Moore, no credentials. Mm-hmm. So I built up credentials saying, well, I'm going to do it, because other people would say, well, you can't do that. And I'd be like, why can't I do that? Well, you don't have the credentials. And I got so mad at this guy one day that I went out and quit that job. Within 6 weeks of him telling me that, I quit that job and I got credentials. And that was good. It put a fire under me to do that. And I think it's that constant fire that I personally have that gets me up every day going, I want to go in and make a difference. Like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't like it. But I really like it, and it's part-time, and I do my other part-time activities, and I don't like to be any one place for too long. So I could not go into one place of work and work there 5 days a week. Some people can do that, but I need variety in my life because I have a short attention span. I like to, do a project and move on to the next project. And as challenging as it is to be an instructor here, because it's very challenging, I actually really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much, Buck.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time today.
Okay. Excellent.